There is one herb that stops pain in its tracks, and that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. Today, I'm going to teach you how to make a pain relief rub out of one of my favorite herbs. So let's go out to the garden and let me introduce you to the herb that stops pain every time. Last week, we talked about 5 herbs to stop pain. Today we are going to zoom in on one of those herbs, and I'm going to show you how to make a pain relief rub that you can use for sore muscles, for sore joints, for bruising. This is a pain rub that works for literally everything. It's one of my favorite things that I make for my family, and it's something you need to know how to make for yours. So join me today as we make a pain relief rub, and I tell you about an herb that really helps every day for my family. So this is comfrey, and comfrey is a plant that has some serious superpowers, especially for helping with pain. There is a compound in comfrey leaf that actually helps cells regenerate, which means if you have an injury, comfrey can help the cells regenerate so that you heal twice as fast. This sounds crazy. Can a plant really help you get well faster? Well, yes, it can, and I have put this one to the test with my family again and again and again, and it has never failed. As a matter of fact, recently, my father-in-law came over, and he was kind of talking about how his ankle hurt, and he injured his ankle years ago. It has bothered him for years. And I said, well, let me give you this new Comfrey Salve that I've made and let you just try it. It's supposed to help with pain. And so he took a tin of it home and he tried it. Well, he came back over here yesterday and he said, you're not going to believe this. He was like, my ankle has hurt for 2 years and it's like 95% better. He was like, I barely have any pain anymore. He was like, I'm putting that salve on every day and it's really helping. So there you go. This is such a simple little recipe, but it really works to help for pain. And it's just a good thing to keep on hand for your family. Now, why does it matter that we have pain relief remedies that come from herbs? I mean, goodness knows there's plenty of pain medication available, right? Well, that brings me to another story that I wanted to tell you. And, you know, last week we talked about pain, and a lot of you emailed me, and a lot of you told me your own stories that you're dealing with arthritis pain or, you know, stomach pain or joint pain or injury pain. Like, pain is a common thread. We all have it at some point, right? So for me, when I think about pain, I think about my friend Cecilia. And Cecilia was human sunshine. That's the best way I know to describe her. She was truly one of the most joyful people that I have ever met. Cecilia had Crohn's disease, and I met her about 8 years ago. I was working in a rehab for drug addiction before I was a full-time herbalist. That's what my job was. And Cecilia struggled with drug addiction because she struggled with pain. She had Crohn's disease, and so she dealt with chronic pain that literally ruined her life. And so doctors gave her a prescription for an opioid pain reliever, and she got addicted to it. The first time I met Cecilia was in a hospital, and she was laying in a hospital bed, and she was crying because she desperately wanted to turn her life around. It had gone way off the rails to support her addiction. And so we tried to help her. And Cecilia came to rehab, and for a while she did well. And then she relapsed. And so over the next 3 to 4 years, Cecilia came in and out of my life. And I would hear from her, and, you know, she would reach out for help, and we would get her into a program, and she would do well for a while. And then she would have a Crohn's flare, and she would go back into the hospital, and they would dope her back up on opioids, and we'd start all over again. Literally, doctors are what kept Cecilia in addiction, and it's sad to say, but it's true. And so, ultimately, last fall, about a year ago, I got the worst phone call, and I found out that Cecilia lost her battle. she had had a Crohn's flare-up. She had been sober for about 6 months and had been doing really, really well. And she had a Crohn's flare. They gave her pain meds, and she went home and she overdosed, and Cecilia passed away. And so every time I work with herbs for pain, I think of my dear Cecilia. And I think about how senseless it was to lose her. And she was such an important person. Like, she brought so much joy. She was the most giving person I've ever met. One of my favorite Cecilia stories was the year that she was living in rehab. And Mother's Day came around, and she wanted to get me a Mother's Day gift. But living in rehab, she wasn't working. So she went to a thrift store, and she thrifted me the cutest little triple crock pot. And it was so sweet. This thing, like, it had 3 little mini crock pots, so you could cook 3 things at one time. And Cecilia knew that I had a lot of kids and I do a lot of cooking, and so she thought I would love it. And she literally scrimped and saved her change that she would normally use for things like, you know, sodas and snacks in rehab. And she saved it up to buy me this Mother's Day gift. And to this day, that triple crock pot is one of my most prized possessions. I will never get rid of it because it reminds me of what a giving person Cecilia was and the way she loved. You know, even though she had so little, she was willing to give it all. And I miss Cecilia every day. I think about her often. And it's devastating that we lost her, that her children lost their mom, that her parents lost their daughter, and all over pills that doctors gave to her. And if I'm honest with you, it kind of makes me mad. Like, I shouldn't have had to bury my friend because of irresponsible medical practice. And the fact is, nobody ever tried to help Cecilia get to the root cause of her illness. And I didn't know how to help her back then. It was before I had studied herbs, but every time I help someone that's dealing with stomach issues or Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis or something like that, I think of Cecilia and I think about how much I wish that I could have helped her, how much I wish I had known herbs before it was too late for her. So if you're in that boat, if you're struggling with chronic pain, or maybe somebody you love is just struggling with chronic pain, let me show you how to make a pain relief rub that really works, that's not addictive, that's not dangerous, and that can bring actual real relief to you. So in Cecilia's honor, let's take in these comfrey leaves and let's make a pain relief rub. Okay, we have our comfrey harvested, and our first step is we need to infuse this comfrey into an oil. So when you make any sort of a salve or a rub, it always starts with an oil infusion, and you can select what kind of herbs you want to use for this. Comfrey is always a great choice if you're dealing with pain. I also like to add goldenrod. It helps with muscle relief. You could add some eucalyptus or some peppermint to add a cooling property. You could add some cayenne to make it hot, or you could add both. You could add cayenne and eucalyptus and have sort of an icy hot kind of situation. Today we're going to keep this really simple, and we are just using comfrey. Now there are 2 different ways that you can do an oil infusion. You can do a traditional long oil infusion, which I'll show you how to do in a second, or there's a little shortcut method if you need a salve quickly and you don't want to wait weeks. I'll show you the shortcut method too. So first step for both methods is we need to chop up our comfrey leaves because we want as much surface area exposed to our oil as possible. So let's chop our leaves up really small, and then I have 2 glass jars here, and we're going to fill each of these up with comfrey. One of them we're going to do a quick infusion, and one of them we'll do the traditional way, so you can see both methods. Now we're going to make our oil infusion, and for the first method, I'm going to add a couple inches of water to my crock pot. Now this is going to be our quick infusion, and one of the jars is going into the crock pot, and we're going to set it on low. The other jar is going up on the shelf, and I'm just going to let that jar infuse for 4 to 6 weeks. But this one in the crock pot is only going to need about 24 hours on low. Now a few more ingredients. We need beeswax. We're going to use 1 ounce of beeswax for every 1 cup of infused comfrey oil. Then we're also going to grab my secret ingredient, and that is shea butter. It just makes this pain relief salve even better. Now we're going to move to the stove and we're going to put it all together. So in this double boiler, I'm adding my infused comfrey oil. And then to that, we're going to add our beeswax pellets and our shea butter. And we're going to let this slowly infuse over this double boiler on low heat until the beeswax and the shea butter has completely melted into our oil. This actually took about 7 minutes, but I won't put you through watching the whole process. Once it's all melted together, we can fill our little tins. And once they're full, we're just going to let these sit and cool down, and it will solidify as the temperature cools. It's going to take a few hours for your salve to set up and go completely solid. But once it's set, you can put the lids on your tins and they are ready to store or to give away as gifts. These are wonderful Christmas gifts. So if you're looking for some ideas for this year, make a salve and add these into stockings for all your friends and family. This little pain relief salve is truly a miracle worker. I call it my Cecilia salve because it always makes me think of her. And I hope you'll give it a try. If you try making this salve, let me know what you think. Let me know if you try it, if it helps you. And let me know how you like to treat pain. What are some natural remedies that you rely on for pain? And how do you use them for your family? In my new book, The Everyday Herbalist, you can find all the information you need to learn to use Comfrey. There is an entire herbal profile in here all about Comfrey where you can learn how to use it for lots of different things and also how to grow it in your garden if you're interested in that. But if you don't have a garden or you don't have the space to grow your own Comfrey, you can also order some from my herb shop. So we have that linked for you in the caption today where you can just order a bag of Comfrey so you can start making your own Comfrey pain relief salve at home. But the book and our herb shop are linked for you today in the caption below. And just like that, we have made our very own pain relief salve. And it was so simple, right? Sometimes the process seems a whole lot more overwhelming in theory, and then when you actually try it, it's quite simple. But this is Comfrey pain relief salve, and this stuff is amazing. It's also just really good for your skin. It's moisturizing. The oils and the shea butter is so good for the skin, but it also helps with pain. So whether you have arthritis pain or an injury or a bruise or something else going on, if you are dealing with pain, try this little recipe and see if it will help you. And remember, herbs are our friend. And the big idea today is if you are dealing with pain, let's look into herbal options instead of pharmaceuticals. Let's try everything we can to avoid the prescription pathway because of my friend Cecilia and her story. It's a really important reminder that sometimes the things that we think are going to help us end up harming us. And with addiction being such a strong possibility and so many pain relievers are addictive, it's really important that we learn to use herbs to manage pain in a healthy way. So I hope that this recipe is helpful to you. I hope it blesses you. Grab a copy of my Everyday Herbalist Guide so you can start making remedies at home. And remember, herbs are a gift from our good and loving God who has gone out of his way to give us everything we need for health and healing. We just have to learn how to use the plants he gave us and put them to use. So God bless you. I hope that your herbal journey will continue and we will see you next week.